1.
Hi, I'm Deacon Anthony Cioe, and welcome to this week's edition of Encountering Christ, where each week we come together to provide a teaching or a reflection that will help us to build and strengthen our relationship with Christ. So let me start off with a question. Are you looking for God in all the right places? It's kind of a trick question, you know. It implies that God is hiding somewhere and we need to go searching for him, right? Well, that's the farthest thing from the truth. Being a Catholic is hard. We just can't say, oh, I'm a spiritual person, so I'm going to go out and sit in the woods and commune with God, and that's going to bring me peace, and that's going to allow me to help other people in the world. No. Archbishop Cioe, formerly of Philly, tells us that while spirituality is about man's search for God, Catholicism is about God's search for man. Interesting twist, isn't it? God is always searching for us. He's always ready to take our hand. He's always ready to walk by our side. But we need to be ready to open ourselves up to him. As Catholics, we search for God while God searches for us. It's a mutual process that requires our active participation. So first, let me share with you some scriptural examples to help us understand how God's hand is always outstretched to us, waiting to help. In Luke's gospel, the Pharisees are complaining that Jesus welcomes sinners to eat with him. So to them, he addresses these parables. He tells the people about the lost sheep. If you have 100 and lose one, you go out and search for the one, and you are joyful when you find that one. Each of us is important, and God will never stop looking for us. Then the parable of the lost coin. The woman looks for it and rejoices when it's found. Our Lord rejoices when we come back to him. Then Jesus tells them the story of the lost son, or as we know it, the story of the prodigal son. The son asks for his inheritance and then goes off and squanders it. When he realizes the mistake he's made, he comes back fully prepared to grovel even for a place where he can live and have some food. But when he is still a long way off, his father sees him. He runs to him, embraces him, kisses his son. He orders a celebration because the one who is lost has been found. Isn't that beautiful? No matter what happens, God never stops being available to us. He's looking for us. He's seeing us in a distance. He's available to us. Here's another example. In the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, and John, we hear the story of Peter, who is called out of the boat to walk on water toward Christ. When he is focused on Jesus, he remains upright, even in the strong winds and the heavy waves. But as soon as he becomes distracted and takes his eyes off God, he falls. But Jesus is there with his hand outstretched. Jesus never takes his eyes off of us. Okay, so if Jesus never stops looking for us and is always making himself available, why does it often seem like we're playing a game of hide and seek? We're seeking and he's hiding. Remember what I said earlier. He's not hiding. It's us who are doing the hiding. So I guess the real question is, how do I make myself available so that God can find me? We make ourselves available by finding the time to be with him. Look at our day. Is it filled with stuff, or have you created the time to relax and pray? Because it's not in the noise, in the chaos or confusion and technology that we find God. It's in the soft whispers that we recognize him. I love this reading from the first book of Kings about the prophet Elijah. Elijah has a showdown with 450 other prophets of the different God. When God answers by fire and Baal is nowhere to be found, the people of Israel recognize that the God that they are worshiping is not the true God. When Ahab tells his evil wife Jezebel the events of the day, she vows to kill Elijah for what he's done. So she sends a message to Elijah telling him that he won't be alive in 24 hours. She sends her army out to capture him. He's now in fear of his life. He retreats to Mount Horeb to communicate with God, just as Moses had done before him. But once there, he feels as though God has abandoned him. He becomes distracted by his own fear. He became a distracted believer. But he finds to his surprise that the place of encounter with God is not in the great things. He didn't find God in the strong and heavy wind, nor in the mighty hurricanes, nor in the raging fire. No, he finds God in the small, whispering sound. Elijah was so distracted by his problems that he took his eyes off of God. But once he refocused on the presence of God, his faith was restored, and he became strong again, and God gave him the encounter and the courage to regain his faith. God speaks to us. He sings to us in silence. We can't hear him if we allow ourselves to be constantly immersed in the sea of noise and distractions. We can't see heaven if our face is buried in our smartphone. Now, I know that there are some of you who can multitask. You could be listening to music, typing on the keyboard, while still listening and responding to conversations that are going on around you. That's not most of us. I'm that person who needs quiet to really be open to turning myself on into discovery mode so that I can allow Jesus to find me. And honestly, all of you are the same. You find God most when you are in discovery mode, so that you can listen to God. You can listen to that soft whisper. For me, I love being in the church. It's my quiet place. It's a place that I can be with God. I can feel his presence. I can be open to the message he has for me. How else can you make yourself available, God? Where is your quiet place? Where is the place that you can feel God talking to you and you can hear his voice? You need to make time for God. My wife, Phil, found this wonderful little prayer, and I recommend it as a way to help you stay focused on Christ during your day. Something that you can use at the start of each day. You touch your forehead, your mouth, your heart, and your hands. You say, may all I think, speak, hear, and do be for your honor and done with love. That little prayer can help you start off your day and keep you on track when things kind of divert your attention away from God during the day. We can also make ourselves available and discoverable by remembering that Christianity is not a religion for individuals. Jesus did not come to be our life coach. He came to build a family that would set the world on fire with God's love. Bishop Barron just released a 1-minute video clip from one of the presentations that he did. And in it he says that in baptism, you were chosen for a purpose. You have been given a purpose by God. You've been chosen for that purpose. You have a wonderful privilege of being baptized, but you have a responsibility also. What is that purpose? You were specifically chosen, singled out, not for your own sake, but for the sake of the world. We were chosen to be parents so that we can lead our children to a closer relationship with God and make the world a better place. Maybe we're chosen to be a spouse so that we can create a domestic church in our home that will bring God's love to others. Those are only 2 examples. There are many more. You were chosen for a purpose. There are no coincidences in life. God has a plan. We just need to be able to hear him explain that to us. But we can't do that if we're not listening. Sometimes I like to think of it like a Hollywood director and explain it like a Hollywood director might explain it. In our lives, we're the star. Now there are co-stars, maybe our spouse or our children. They play an important part in our lives. But then there are also the extras. We come into our life. They come into our life. They play a small role and then they disappear. But they're important and we need to understand why they were placed in our lives. What message do they come to share with us? Now, here's the real important part. In God's plan, it's bigger than anything. In his plan, He's the star, not us. We're the co-stars or the extras. He's placed us in other people's lives for a reason, and we can only figure out and fulfill the purpose that he's created for us if we're discoverable and we start to listen and understand why he has placed people in our lives, why he has placed us in other people's lives. I'll repeat what I said a moment ago. Christianity is not a religion for individuals. Jesus did not come to be our life coach. He came to build a family that would set the world on fire with God's love. Let me pose this question. Where can I encounter God? How do I let God find me? I'm drawing very heavily on Archbishop Cioe in this presentation because during my recent vacation, I had the opportunity to reread his book titled Strangers in a Strange Land. I first read the book 3 years ago when it was originally published. In it, he tells a story of how a friend of his first met God, how that person first encountered God. The person says that she thinks that she was maybe 5 or 6 years old. One July evening, it was cloudless and moonless. Her father took her out into the backyard, into the darkness, and told her to look up at the sky. When she looked up from one end of the sky to the other, as far as the eye could see, there were stars, bright, shimmering lights, like pinpoints of light on a black carpet of the night. And in the quiet, her father whispered to her. He said, God made the world beautiful because he loves us. Isn't that a beautiful story? God made the world beautiful because he loves us. The bishop goes on to tell us that the most powerful kind of witness that we can give or that others can give to us doesn't come from a classroom or from a pulpit. It doesn't require a college degree or special training. It naturally grows out of the lives of ordinary people. Spouses, friends, acquaintances, people that come in and out of our lives who are confident that God has something for them and is sharing something with them. Witnesses, the greatest of witnesses, do not come from people who could spout off a litany of facts about our faith, but rather from those who can touch us with beauty and truth. How about if you allow yourselves to see the beauty of God in the creation as a way of letting yourself be discovered by God? Every experience of real beauty leads us deeper into humility because the grandeur of what we witness fills us with awe and helps us to understand that we are but a small bit player in the story of life. Remember that song from Bobby McFerrin a few years ago? Don't worry, be happy. It's a simple song. It's a fun song. It makes you feel happy. And we seek happiness, right? Happiness is part of human nature. And God has been placed into the human heart to draw us to him alone, who can fulfill our needs and our desires. When we allow ourselves to breathe in God's beauty, when we breathe in the joy that he has created for us, when we breathe in the warmth and the love of the Holy Spirit, we are able to breathe out the joy and happiness that is contagious to others. Like Elijah and Peter and the prodigal son, we sometimes think that God may have abandoned us or is not close by. But it's really us who are not unlocking our hearts to him. Remember, Jesus is here to help us negotiate the troubles of our lives. If we focus on Jesus, we can handle whatever life throws our way. But if we allow ourselves to focus on the storms in our lives, when we become distracted by the events that scare us, it's then that we panic and we grasp and we clutch and we begin to sink. It's during those difficult times that we can put our trust in Jesus, put our hand out to him, and we can find that his hand is already outstretched, ready and eager to pull us back to safety. It's Jesus' hand that is always outstretched, even in the midst of a storm. Let me conclude by saying, the real object, make time to pray. Make the time to open your heart to hearing God's gentle voice. As Father Steve often says, you are the gatekeeper. So open your heart to an encounter with the one who will provide all that we will ever need. And if you do that, if you put yourself in discovery mode, you will develop this relationship with Christ that is like no other. Thank you, and God bless you.